sister mocked me behind my back for being too generous. So I marked it on my calendar and waited until the day she would come pick up the boxes with the designer clothes I always passed down to her when I got tired of them. For 5 years, she received my Louis Vuitton bags and Louboutin shoes saying she couldn't afford to buy those things. But I found a private Instagram story where she was selling everything and wrote, "My sucker sister supports me without knowing it," with a now painting emoji. The wine glass slipped from my fingers, shattering against my marble kitchen floor as I stared at Stella's phone screen. She had left it unlocked on my counter while using the bathroom, and the notification had lit up automatically. There it was, my vintage Chanel bag. The one I'd given her just last month because she'd admired it so much. Listed for $4,000 with the caption, "Another donation from my personal ATM." The comments below were even worse. Stella's friends laughing about how gullible I was, how she had trained me to be her fashion fairy godmother. One friend had written, "Your sister must be loaded to give away her mess." And Stella had replied, "She's too naive to realize what she's giving away. Works 60-hour weeks but hands me everything, like I'm charity." I was Rachel Thompson, 28, a tax attorney who had built everything from nothing. Stella was my younger sister by 3 years, a part-time yoga instructor who lived in a studio apartment and claimed poverty whenever dinner bills arrived. For half a decade, I had believed her tears about student loans and struggling to make ends meet. Every time I cleaned out my closet, I'd think of her admiring my clothes during family dinners, how her eyes would linger on my jewelry. Like an idiot, I'd box everything up and deliver it to her door, feeling proud of my generosity. What I hadn't known was that she'd built an entire side business selling my gifts while maintaining the charade of sisterly gratitude. But now, seeing the evidence of her betrayal spelled out in cruel detail, something cold and calculating awakened in my chest. Stella thought she was clever, manipulating her naive older sister. She had no idea I discovered her little scheme, and she certainly had no idea what I was capable of when truly motivated. The bathroom door opened and Stella emerged, smoothing down her hair. She wore a casual smile that now looked predatory to my newly awakened eyes. "Thanks for letting me use your bathroom, Ratch, and thank you again for that gorgeous bracelet last week. I literally teared up when you said I could have it." I watched her performance with fascination, noting every micro expression, every calculated pause. She was good at this. I'd give her that. Years of practice had honed her manipulation skills to a fine art. "You're welcome," I replied evenly, handing her the phone. "I hope you get good use out of it." Stella pocketed the device, oblivious to what I'd seen. "Actually, I was wondering if you had any more bags you weren't using. Madison's engagement party is next month, and I want to look nice." The audacity was breathtaking. Even now, caught red-handed though she didn't know it, she was already angling for her next score. "I'll see what I can find," I said, my voice perfectly calm. Inside, my mind was already working, calculating, planning. Stella had played this game for 5 years, thinking herself the master manipulator. But she'd made one crucial error. She'd assumed I would remain ignorant forever. As she gathered her purse to leave, chattering about yoga classes and weekend plans, I made a mental note of the date, November 15th. That was when she always came by to collect her quarterly donations, usually right before holiday shopping season when designer pieces fetched premium prices. This year would be different. This year, Stella would discover that her naive, generous older sister had learned to play the game too. And unlike her, I never lost. The door closed behind her with a soft click, and I found myself smiling for the first time in hours. Stella thought she'd been cultivating a fool, but she'd actually been creating her own worst nightmare, someone with both the resources and intelligence to destroy her completely. She wanted to see how far sisterly love could be exploited. I was about to show her exactly where those boundaries lay. My phone buzzed with a text from her, "Love you sis, you're the best," followed by heart emojis. I screenshot the message and saved it in a new folder labeled evidence. Every lie, every manipulation, every fake tear she'd shed in my living room while secretly planning to rob me blind, all of it was about to come full circle. Stella had taught me a valuable lesson about trust and family. Now it was my turn to be the teacher. I pulled out my laptop and opened a new document. At the top, I typed Operation Stella and began to outline my research plan. If she thought selling my belongings was profitable, wait until she discovered what it felt like to lose everything she'd built on the foundation of my generosity. The student was about to become the master, and class was about to begin. The next morning, I called in a personal day and drove to Stella's neighborhood. Her studio apartment sat above a vintage bookstore in the arts district, trendy enough to impress her yoga friends, cheap enough to maintain her poverty narrative. I parked across the street with coffee and my laptop, watching her building like a private investigator. Within an hour, I'd photographed her leaving in a brand new Tesla Model Y, strange transportation choice for someone who claimed she couldn't afford groceries. I followed at a distance as she drove to an upscale consignment shop called Lux Resale in the wealthy part of town. Through the window, I watched her pull my burgundy Bottega Veneta clutch from her oversized tote bag, the same clutch she tearfully accepted last month, claiming she needed something special for job interviews. The shop owner greeted her like an old friend, examining the bag with practiced expertise before disappearing into the back room. 20 minutes later, Stella emerged counting a thick stack of cash. She didn't look like someone struggling to pay bills. She looked like someone who just completed a successful business transaction. I snapped photos of her stuffing the money into her purse, her satisfied smile visible even from across the street. This wasn't desperation. It was calculated fraud. My phone buzzed with a call from our mother. Rachel, honey, have you heard from Stella lately? She called yesterday crying about her rent being late again. Dad and I are thinking of sending her some money. The irony was suffocating. While I'd been unknowingly funding Stella's lifestyle, she'd been manipulating our elderly parents for cash too. Our father was living on a fixed retirement income, and our mother worked part-time at a library. They couldn't afford to support Stella's lives. Actually, Mom, don't send anything yet. Let me talk to her first. I needed to know the full scope of Stella's operation before involving our parents. If she was running this con on multiple family members, the web of deception ran deeper than I'd imagined. That afternoon, I visited 3 more consignment shops in the area. At each location, I posed as a potential seller, asking about their most frequent consignors. Two shop owners mentioned a young blonde woman who brought in incredible pieces monthly. One even showed me photos of items Stella had sold. My items, my Hermes scarf, my Tiffany necklace, my vintage Gucci pumps. Pieces I'd given her throughout the year, trusting her grateful tears and sisterly hugs. The final shop, Designer Exchange, proved most illuminating. The owner, Maria, pulled up Stella's account on her computer. Stella Bradley sells more luxury items than anyone else we work with. She's made over $37,000 with us this year alone. $37,000 from one shop. I felt nauseous calculating how much my generosity had actually cost me. She mentioned her sister works in fashion and gives her samples. Maria continued innocently. Lucky girl having family connections like that. I managed a tight smile. My hands clenched in my lap. Fashion samples. That was Stella's cover story for why she constantly had new designer pieces to sell. Back home, I created a spreadsheet documenting every gift I'd given Stella over 5 years. Designer bags, shoes, jewelry, clothing. Items I'd estimated conservatively were worth over $200,000 retail. But Stella had been selling them at consignment prices, probably netting around 70% of retail value. She'd made at least $140,000 selling my gifts while crying poverty to everyone who'd listen. My doorbell rang, interrupting my calculations. Stella stood outside holding a bottle of wine and wearing the diamond earrings I'd given her for her birthday. Surprise! I brought dinner from that Thai place you love. Figured we could have a sister night. She breezed past me into the kitchen, completely at ease in my space. Oh, and I have a tiny favor to ask. Of course she did. What's that? Madison's engagement party is at the country club, and I'm meeting her fiancé's family for the first time. They're old money, super judgy about appearances. She set the food containers on my counter, avoiding eye contact. I was hoping maybe you had a really stunning dress one could borrow. Something that screams, I belong here. The audacity was breathtaking. She wanted to use my clothing to impress rich people while secretly selling my gifts behind my back. When's the party? This Saturday night. I know it's last minute, but you always come through for me. She finally met my eyes, and I saw the calculated vulnerability there. The slight tremor in her voice, the way she bit her lower lip. All practice moves designed to trigger my protective instincts. Let me see what I can find, I said, matching her tone perfectly. Inside, my mind was racing. Saturday was 5 days away. Enough time to set the first phase of my plan in motion. Stella's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it and her face lit up. Oh my God. The yoga studio wants me to teach an advanced class next month. It pays almost $300 for a single session. She bounced excitedly, the picture of someone grateful for small financial breaks. Every little bit helps. You know, between student loans and rent, I'm barely keeping my head above water. I nodded sympathetically while internally marveling at her performance. Stella had missed her calling as an actress. She could sell this poverty narrative to anyone because she genuinely seemed to believe parts of it herself. That self-deception would make her downfall even more devastating. Actually, I said casually, I have something special in mind for Saturday. Trust me. Stella's eyes sparkled with anticipation. Always. Thursday evening, I sat in my home office finalizing the most important legal document I'd ever drafted. As a tax attorney, I understood the power of paper trails and ironclad contracts. Stella thought she was playing checkers, but I'd been setting up a chess match for months without realizing it. Every gift I'd given her had been photographed for insurance purposes. Every occasion documented with receipts and dates. What Stella didn't know was that legally, those items had been loans, not gifts, if I could prove intent to defraud. My phone rang. Detective Sarah Chen, an old law school friend now working white-collar crime. Rachel, that consignment shop investigation you asked about, very interesting findings. I called in a favor, asking Sarah to look into whether Lux Resale had proper documentation for high-value items. They'd been sloppy with paperwork, especially for that Stella Bradley account you mentioned. No proof of ownership for items over $5,000, which violates state regulations. Perfect. What does that mean practically? Means they could lose their license if someone filed a complaint. Also means any items sold without proper provenance could be considered receipt of stolen goods if the original owner wanted to press charges. Sarah paused meaningfully. You're not thinking of doing anything rash, are you? Just gathering information. I replied truthfully. Hypothetically, if someone had been systematically defrauded by a family member, what would you recommend? Hypothetically, document everything, build an airtight case, then strike once with overwhelming evidence. Don't give them time to cover tracks or destroy evidence. Exactly what I'd been thinking. Friday morning, I drove to the most exclusive boutique in the city. I need your most stunning cocktail dress. I told the sales associate. Money is no object, but it needs to make a statement. She brought out a custom Valentino piece. Midnight blue silk with intricate beadwork, originally designed for a socialite who'd never picked it up. $8,000, but it would be perfect for what I had planned. I also purchased matching accessories. Louboutin heels, a vintage Chanel clutch, and a diamond tennis bracelet that caught the light magnificently. The total came to nearly $15,000, more than I'd ever spent on a single outfit. But this wasn't about the money. This was about sending a message. Stella texted throughout the day, her excitement palpable. Can't wait to see what you picked out. You have the best taste. Madison's going to die when she sees me looking so elegant. I owe you big time for this, sis. Yes, she did owe me. More than she could possibly imagine. Saturday afternoon, I laid the Valentino dress carefully across my guest bed, along with all the accessories. I'd also prepared a small gift box containing the diamond bracelet, the most expensive piece of the ensemble. When Stella arrived, her gasp of delight was audible from the foyer. Rachel, this is incredible. She held up the dress, examining every detail. This must have cost a fortune. Are you sure you don't mind me borrowing it? It's perfect for you. I said sincerely. But I need you to be extra careful with everything. That bracelet especially. It's a family heirloom. A complete lie. But Stella nodded solemnly. Of course, I'll guard it with my life. She was already removing her clothes, eager to try everything on. The dress fit perfectly, transforming her from yoga instructor to socialite in seconds. I look like I belong in Vogue, she breathed, admiring herself in my full-length mirror. You look beautiful. I agreed, taking photos for memories. What Stella didn't know was that I was documenting the exact condition of every item before she left my house. The party starts at 8, right? Yes. But I want to get there exactly on time, early enough to mingle, late enough to make an entrance. She was practically glowing with anticipation. Madison's fiancé comes from serious money. His family owns half the commercial real estate downtown. If I make a good impression tonight, it could open doors. Always networking, always calculating angles. Stella never did anything without considering what she could gain from it. Tonight would be no exception, though not in the way she expected. As she gathered her things to leave, I handed her a small camera. Would you mind taking some photos at the party? I'd love to see the country club. I've always been curious about their events. Stella laughed, planning to crash their membership committee. Something like that. I replied with a smile that didn't reach my eyes. She left at 7:30, kissing my cheek and promising to text updates throughout the evening. I watched her Tesla disappear down my street, then immediately called Maria at Designer Exchange. Maria, this is Rachel Thompson. We spoke earlier this week about luxury consignment. Of course. Are you ready to bring in some pieces? Actually, I'm calling about Stella Bradley. I have reason to believe she's been selling stolen merchandise through your shop. I let that sink in before continuing. I'm a tax attorney and I've been building a case against her for fraud. I thought you should know before this becomes a criminal matter. The silence stretched for long seconds. Stolen merchandise, but she has provenance for everything. Check her account again. Look at the dates she sold specific items. Then ask yourself how a part-time yoga instructor affords to buy and immediately resell pieces worth thousands of dollars. I recited the serial numbers from several bags I'd photographed. Those items belong to me, and I never gave permission for their sale. I could hear Maria typing frantically. Oh my God, these dates? She sold that Hermes bag the same week you say you gave it to her, and this Chanel piece was a birthday gift I gave her 3 days before she sold it to you. I finished. Maria, I'm going to need you to pull Stella's entire sales history. Tonight, if possible. Can you do that? Absolutely. Jesus, if this is true, we could lose our license. We'll cooperate fully with any investigation. Phase 1, complete. By tomorrow morning, Stella's entire revenue stream would be frozen and every shop in the city would be on alert for her attempted sales. But that was just the appetizer. The main course was still cooking. At exactly 9:15 p.m., my phone exploded with notifications. Stella had posted dozens of photos from the country club party. Herself posing with Madison's wealthy friends, champagne glass raised in toasts, designer dress showcasing perfectly in the elegant ballroom. She looked radiant, confident, completely in her element among people she aspired to join. The photos were perfect evidence for what came next. At 9:30, I called the country club security office. This is Rachel Thompson, tax attorney with Morrison and Associates. I need to report a theft in progress at tonight's engagement party. I provided Stella's full name and physical description. The dress and jewelry she's wearing were stolen from my client earlier today. The diamond bracelet alone is worth $12,000. The security chief, a former police officer named Robert Kim, took detailed notes. You're certain these items were stolen? Completely certain. My client has receipts, insurance documentation, and photographs proving ownership. The suspect has a history of theft from family members. We're building a criminal case. I texted him several photos of the jewelry and dress. She's probably planning to leave with the items tonight. We'll handle this discreetly, Kim assured me. Country club members don't appreciate drama, but they appreciate theft even less. 20 minutes later, Stella's social media posts stopped abruptly. At 10:45, my phone rang. Stella's voice was high-pitched, panicked. Rachel, something horrible happened. The country club security accused me of wearing stolen jewelry. They made me remove everything in front of everyone and called the police. She was crying, each word punctuated by hiccuping sobs. Madison's friends think I'm a criminal. The police took photos and said they'd be in touch for questioning. Oh my God, Stella, that's terrible. What did you tell them? I tried explaining that you lent me everything, but they said the items were reported stolen by the owner. They wouldn't listen. Her voice cracked with genuine anguish. Rachel, you have to call them. Tell them you gave me permission to wear your things. I let the silence stretch, choosing my words carefully. Stella, I'm confused. The police said the items were reported stolen by the owner, but I'm the owner of that dress and jewelry. Another pause, longer this time. When Stella spoke again, her voice had changed, less panicked, more calculating. What are you saying? I'm saying I didn't report anything stolen because I lent those items to my sister. So if someone else claimed ownership and filed a police report, I let the implication hang in the air. Rachel, you're scaring me. Just call them and clear this up. I'll call first thing Monday morning. I promised. But Stella, this is really strange. Maybe we should talk tomorrow about what really happened tonight. She agreed quickly, probably planning to use the weekend to craft a better story. After hanging up, I poured myself a glass of wine and opened my laptop. Stella's social media accounts were still active, but she deleted every photo from the party. Too late. I'd already downloaded everything to my evidence folder. Sunday morning arrived with Stella pounding on my front door at 7 a.m. She looked like she hadn't slept. Her yoga clothes wrinkled, her usually perfect hair tangled. We need to talk, she said, pushing past me into my living room. Coffee first. I offered pleasantly. No, Rachel, what the hell happened last night? She was pacing, gesticulating wildly. Those security guards treated me like a common thief. They made me undress in the manager's office while they inventoried every piece of jewelry. Madison's entire family thinks I'm a criminal. I settled into my armchair, studying her performance. That does sound humiliating, but I'm still confused about who reported the items stolen. Stella stopped pacing, fixing me with a stare. You're the only other person who knew I was wearing those things. True, I acknowledged, but I didn't file any police reports. Did you? Of course not. Then someone else must have recognized the items and reported them, which would mean I trailed off, watching understanding dawn in Stella's eyes, which would mean someone else thinks they own my jewelry. She finished slowly. Exactly. I stood up, walking to my home office. Stella, can you come here for a minute? I want to show you something. She followed reluctantly, probably sensing this conversation was heading somewhere dangerous. My computer was already open to the Designer Exchange website. Stella's sales history displayed prominently on the screen. Stella, I said gently, why does this consignment shop have records of you selling my diamond earrings 3 weeks ago? The color drained from her face as she stared at the screen. Listed in black and white were photos and descriptions of dozens of items she'd sold over the past year, all items I'd given her as gifts. The sell dates, prices, even her seller ID number. I can explain, she whispered. Please do. I pulled up her Instagram account on a second browser window. Scrolling to the post I'd screenshot the week before. Actually, let me start. Another donation from my personal ATM. That's how you described our relationship to your friends, right? Stella collapsed into my desk chair, her head in her hands. When she looked up, the tears were real this time, not manipulative crying designed to elicit sympathy, but genuine terror at being caught. Rachel, I never meant for it to go this far. How far did you mean for it to go? I asked conversationally. When you started selling my gifts behind my back, what was the original plan? I needed money. The yoga studio barely pays anything, and rent in the city is insane. She was babbling now, words tumbling out in desperate justification. You have so much, and you're always buying new things anyway. I figured you'd never miss a few pieces here and there. A few pieces. I clicked through to my spreadsheet, the one documenting 5 years of systematic theft. Stella, according to my calculations, you've stolen approximately $140,000 worth of my belongings. That's not a few pieces. That's grand larceny. The number hit her like a physical blow. $140,000. That can't be right. Want to see the receipts? I turned the screen toward her, displaying photos of purchase confirmations, insurance appraisals, and consignment sale records. This Hermes bag, I bought it for $3,500. You sold it for $2,200. This Cartier watch, retail $4,800. Sold for $3,100. Should I continue? Stella was shaking now. The full scope of her crimes laid bare in undeniable documentation. What are you going to do? I smiled, the expression I'd been practicing all week. Stella, I'm going to do exactly what you taught me to do. I'm going to be smart, strategic, and utterly ruthless in protecting my interests. Monday morning, I walked into the police station carrying 3 manila folders and a laptop bag. Detective Martinez, who specialized in financial crimes, had agreed to meet with me after reviewing the preliminary evidence I'd submitted online. Stella had spent the weekend calling and texting frantically, her messages evolving from apologetic to desperate to quietly threatening. Miss Thompson, I've never seen a case of family theft this well documented, Detective Martinez said, spreading my evidence across his desk. Your sister has been running a sophisticated fraud operation for years. I've also discovered she's been manipulating our elderly parents for money. I added, handing him copies of text messages I'd obtained from my mother's phone. While stealing from me, she's been claiming poverty to extract cash from people living on fixed incomes. Martinez whistled low. Elder financial abuse carries additional penalties, combined with the grand larceny charges, he calculated quickly. Your sister is looking at serious prison time. I want to press full charges, I said firmly. But first I need you to freeze her assets and prevent her from leaving the state. She's already destroyed evidence by deleting social media posts, and I suspect she tried to sell remaining stolen items if she realizes how much trouble she's in. Already handled, Martinez replied, sliding a court order across his desk. Judge Williams signed this an hour ago. All of Stella Bradley's bank accounts are frozen, and she's been flagged for travel monitoring. We'll execute a search warrant on her apartment this afternoon. Perfect. While Stella had been sleeping off her hangover Sunday, I'd been orchestrating her complete destruction. My phone buzzed with a call from Stella. Don't answer, Martinez advised. Let her incriminate herself further. The call went to voicemail. Rachel, please call me back. I know you're angry, but family doesn't do this to family. I'm your sister. We can work this out without involving police or lawyers or anyone else. I'll pay you back. I promise. Just please, don't ruin my entire life over some stupid mistakes. Martinez raised an eyebrow. Some stupid mistakes? She's still minimizing? I observed. Stella doesn't understand the difference between mistakes and systematic criminal behavior. Tuesday afternoon, I received a call from Maria at Designer Exchange. Rachel, I wanted to let you know, Stella came in this morning trying to sell a pearl necklace. When our staff informed her that her account was permanently suspended pending criminal investigation, she became unhinged. Define unhinged, he started screaming that her sister was destroying her life over a few gifts, then threw the necklace at our display case and shattered the glass. We had to call security to remove her. Maria paused. She also said something about you stealing money from your parents. Does that make sense? It made perfect sense. Stella was attempting to flip the narrative, probably preparing to claim I was the real criminal. Too late for that strategy. Wednesday morning brought the news I'd been anticipating. Detective Martinez called with updates from Stella's apartment search. We found a storage unit key hidden in her bedroom. The unit contained over $50,000 worth of luxury items, all matching descriptions from your theft reports. She's been stockpiling stolen merchandise, but the real bombshell came next. We also found notebooks detailing her entire operation. She's been tracking your shopping habits, noting when you buy new items, even researching resale values before asking for specific pieces as gifts. This wasn't opportunistic theft, Ms. Thompson. This was calculated, premeditated fraud. Stella had been studying me like a business case, learning my patterns and preferences to maximize her theft potential. Every tearful request, every grateful hug, every sisterly bonding moment had been professionally calculated to separate me from my belongings. There's more, Martinez continued. She's been running similar cons on at least 3 other people. 2 co-workers and a former roommate have filed complaints about missing jewelry and clothing. Your sister isn't just a family thief, she's a serial predator. The scope of Stella's criminal enterprise was staggering. She turned manipulation into an art form, targeting trusting people and systematically robbing them while maintaining relationships designed to provide continued access. I felt sick thinking about how many others might be discovering their generosity had been weaponized against them. Thursday evening, Stella appeared at my door flanked by our parents. Dad looked confused and worried. Mom was clearly crying. Stella herself appeared years older than she had the previous week. Her face gaunt, her clothes disheveled. Rachel, honey, there's been some kind of misunderstanding. Mom began tentatively. Stella says you've accused her of stealing, but that can't be right. Sisters don't steal from each other. Unfortunately, this one did. I replied, keeping my voice gentle but firm. For 5 years, systematically and extensively, Dad stepped forward. No, wait just a minute, Rachel. Stella made some mistakes, yes, but calling the police, having her arrested, that's going too far. The police called me, Dad. They've been investigating Stella for weeks based on evidence from multiple victims. I'm just one of several people she's been stealing from. I looked directly at Stella. How much money have you taken from Mom and Dad while crying about being broke? Stella's face flushed red. That's different. They wanted to help me. With money you didn't need because you were making 6 figures selling stolen merchandise. I countered. Mom, Dad, Stella has made over $140,000 selling my belongings while claiming poverty to manipulate you into giving her cash. The numbers were too large for my parents to process immediately. Mom sank into my porch chair while Dad stared at Stella with growing comprehension. Stella, is this true? He asked quietly. It's not that simple, Stella began, but I cut her off. Actually, it is that simple. Stella systematically systematically stole from me, lied to you, and built her entire lifestyle on fraud and manipulation. The police have evidence, testimonies from multiple victims, and detailed records of her crimes. I pulled out my phone, showing them photos of Stella's sales records. This is what she's been doing while you worried about her rent money. Dad examined the evidence with his accountants. I for detail. Stella, these dates. You sold a handbag for $2,500 the same week you called asking for grocery money. I can explain everything, Stella said desperately. I'm sure you can, I replied. You've had 5 years of practice. Mom finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. Stella, how could you do this to your sister? To us. But Stella's mask was finally slipping completely. Because Rachel has everything. Perfect job, perfect condo, perfect life. She spends more on a single purse than I make in months. What was I supposed to do? Just accept being the family failure. You were supposed to build your own life instead of stealing mine, I said quietly. But you chose fraud over effort, manipulation over honesty. And now you're going to face the consequences. 3 months later, I sat in the courtroom as Judge Williams sentenced Stella to 4 years in state prison, followed by 3 years of supervised probation. The restitution order was equally devastating. She owed me $143,000, plus damages to the consignment shops that had unknowingly helped facilitate her crimes. Stella's financial life was completely destroyed. The Tesla had been repossessed when her frozen bank accounts couldn't cover payments. Her apartment lease was terminated when she couldn't make rent. The designer clothes found in her possession during the search were being auctioned to pay victim restitution, though the proceeds wouldn't cover even a fraction of what she owed. But the most satisfying part wasn't financial. It was watching Stella finally understand she'd never been as clever as she thought. During her testimony, she tried to paint herself as a victim of societal pressure and family dynamics. The prosecution had calmly presented evidence of her notebooks, detailed theft plans, and multiple victims, demonstrating that her crimes were calculated business decisions, not desperate impulses. Your sister planned these thefts like a corporate strategist, the prosecutor had explained to the jury. She studied her targets, researched market values, and executed a 5-year fraud scheme that netted her more money than most people earn at legitimate jobs. My parents struggled to process Stella's transformation from beloved daughter to convicted felon. Dad had spent weeks reviewing the evidence, his analytical mind unable to reconcile the Stella he'd raised with the criminal she'd become. Mom simply stopped mentioning Stella's name, as if refusing to acknowledge her existence could undo the betrayal. I keep thinking about all the times she cried about money. Mom told me one evening how worried we were about her struggling. She was never struggling. She was just greedy. The yoga studio had terminated Stella's employment after her arrest made local news. Her social circle evaporated when friends realized they might have unknowingly purchased stolen merchandise from her illegal sales. Madison's engagement party became notorious in their social group as the night Stella got arrested, ensuring Stella's reputation would follow her long after her release. But perhaps the most poetic justice was discovering Stella's final scheme during the week before her arrest. In her notebooks, police found detailed plans to manipulate me into co-signing a mortgage for a house she claimed to want for family gatherings. She'd calculated that my income and credit score could qualify her for a $500,000 loan, which she intended to default on after extracting maximum equity. Stella had planned to destroy my financial future while maintaining her loving sister facade until the very end. 6 months after her sentencing, I received a letter from prison. Stella's handwriting was smaller than I remembered, less confident. Rachel, I know you'll probably throw this away without reading it, but I need you to know I understand now what I did to you. Prison gives you a lot of time to think, and I've been thinking about how I justified stealing from the person who loved me most. I told myself you had so much that you'd miss what I took, but that wasn't really what I believed. I knew exactly how much I was stealing, and I knew exactly how wrong it was. I just didn't care because I wanted what you had without working for it. I destroyed our relationship for money, and I destroyed our family's trust for money, and I destroyed my own life for money that was never really mine. You were the best sister anyone could ask for, and I repaid your generosity by robbing you blind. I don't expect forgiveness because I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand the difference between a mistake and a choice. What I did to you was 5 years of choosing to be a criminal. I hope someday you can remember the sister I used to be before I became the person who hurt you. I read the letter twice, then filed it with the rest of my evidence. Stella finally understood the scope of her betrayal, but understanding didn't equal redemption. She'd had 5 years to make different choices, 5 years to confess and make amends, 5 years to value our relationship over her criminal profits. Instead, she'd chosen greed every single day until consequences made different choices for her. My life moved forward beautifully. The insurance payouts for recovered items helped fund a down payment on a larger home. My law practice thrived, partly due to media attention from successfully prosecuting a complex family fraud case. I'd even started dating Detective Martinez, who'd been impressed by my thorough case preparation and systematic approach to justice. Stella would be eligible for parole in 3 years with good behavior. When that day came, she'd emerged to find a world that had moved on without her. Her criminal record would make employment difficult, Her financial reputation was permanently destroyed, and the relationships she'd manipulated for profit were irreparably broken. She taught me an important lesson about trust and boundaries. I taught her an equally important lesson about consequences and justice. The difference was, my lesson would benefit me for life while hers would haunt her forever. Stella had called me her personal ATM, not realizing she was actually making withdrawals from an account that would eventually come due with devastating interest. Now she was learning that some debts can never be fully repaid, and some trust, once broken, can never be rebuilt. The student had become the master, and class was permanently dismissed.